What's up guys, hello to Footballtalk here. It's the week of Thanksgiving, and even though I don't live in the US, I do like to get into the spirit of the holidays, kinda celebrate it every year myself, and thought this was a good inspiration for this week's video. So I decided to outline the 4 things I'm personally thankful for being able to watch this season around the NFL on a weekly basis. 2 on offense and defense each, covering both players and coaches. As much as I enjoy watching them individually, I didn't go into names like Myles Garrett being on track to break the all-time sack records because of how bad the offense has been and too many of his big performances not helping Cleveland win games, or Justin Herbert having to fight for his life behind a horrendous offensive line with multiple injuries making matters worse. I did make a video on his incredible 3-0 start though, if you do want to watch me break down his tape, and I had another one last year on Myles and another prominent AFC North edge rusher. Also did initially have an extra point named the job Kyle Shanahan and the rest of the 49ers coaching staff is doing, but decided this video was going to get long if I didn't cut that part out, and I've discussed them in the previous video anyway. Big ups to them though, somehow sitting at 8-4 despite a myriad of injuries to key contributors. But now, let's get into these 4 topics. First up, the adaptability of the Rams offense. Although I wouldn't say Sean McVay necessarily reinvented an offensive scheme or even crafted new individual concepts, he's been on the forefront of its evolution since becoming the head coach in Los Angeles. However, in the past, the Rams have largely been based in 3 wide receiver sets, transitioning from more of the wide zone principles to a heavy dual run game, and going away from the orientation towards bootlegs, off that horizontal action, to putting more on the quarterback's plate, as the marriage between him and Matthew Stafford has continued to become more harmonious, and they've tapped more into true dropbacks. I talked about this back after week 7, once Puka Nacua on a record-breaking pace went down with an injury, and they traveled to London to dismantle the Jaguars with a heavy focus on 3 tight end sets instead. Weeks 1 through 6 for them was in line with what they've been doing for most of the McVay era in LA, with a 79.3% 11 personnel rate, and the only snaps in 13 personnel came in the last matchup once Puka was out of the lineup and they were in control of the game. Week 7 through 11, those numbers were as close as they've ever been, with a 43.1% rate of 3 tight end sets, and they registered well over 0.2 EPA per play from those, in all but the final matchup yet again. Before this past Sunday night against the Bucs, they knew they'd be able to simply go to 12, and still get top balls to match with base defensive personnel, and they were even more effective, dropping back on 7 of those 10 snaps. Yet it hasn't only been the players they put on the field, but the way they've played off-down tendencies, put defenses in conflict with simple yes or no checks pre-snap, and then of course Stafford played at an MVP level, as it's firmly felt like games have been in the palm of the Rams' hands by controlling things on the offensive side. Here are 5 plays from different points of the season that kinda speak to that, with the last one being more of a feature of theirs. On this first snap against the Texans, LA is in 12 personnel with a rather condensed 2x2 look here initially, as they put a stack at the top of the screen and the tight end offset at the bottom, along with Puka in a condensed split. Even though Houston does have 5 DBs in the field on the 2nd and 6, this is a single high safety look all the way, in order to not be vulnerable to a soft box or a quick completion in case you put that extra guy deep and now you have all this cushion underneath here. So what the Rams do here is bump the tight end at the bottom outside for a mirrored concept where if the 2 tight ends are quick out routes to occupy the corners playing that deep third, and the 2 receivers inside running right up the seams, plus a little hook by the running back to bind these linebackers from turning and running. The deep safety shades too far to the left. Puka does a nice job of not allowing this off defender to bump him in his routes as he slightly tilts outside before whipping his head around, and he carved him up right up the hash. Watch Stafford as this happens here, opening to his left initially, making sure he keeps that safety at bay before snapping his base the opposite way as he gets to the top of his drop and with zero hesitation whips the ball in there. Second place from that already mentioned London game against Jacksonville, something I've highlighted previously because of how cool the design is. Already up big here in the 4th quarter, they come out in that 3 tight end set, the de facto Y and these 2 guys offset. They motion the single tight end over to create a loaded strong side, and they're gonna fake a lead run with the man on the move. Only the quarterback actually opens with the back the opposite way, as they rely more so on his offensive line to sell this, which it does. Now it's a 3-man concept with a high cross from the single receiver on the backside. The back wheels up the sideline, but the route they really want to target here is that corner post from the rookie tight end Terrence Ferguson, who has this down safety at his mercy, having to trail the vertical push. He's gonna nod to the corner, but then breaks back to the post with all that green grass in front of him. Could have easily hit Kyren here coming out of the backfield as well, but he puts it out there for his rookie tight end, and 32 yards later it's a score. Look at this 10-man box trying to sell out to defend the run. He late in a situation where they really need to stop, and how the fake draws everyone up here. To really where all three potential targets have multiple steps of separation on their defender, Ferguson's the primary and Stafford lets it fly to him. Beautiful. The next snap is from a rematch with the 49ers in San Francisco, having already lost to them at home about a month earlier when they were really wounded coming in. So they need to get their revenge here, and they were in control throughout the day, with better than a 60% success rate both on the ground and through the air, at over 0.4 EP per play combined. This is one of the runs they had where the backs were able to get through the second level untouched, as they unleashed that 13 personnel against the division rivals, but this time started with all three tight ends to the left side in the offense, before motioning one of them over and directly putting him in a kick-up block on this edge defender, allowing Blake Corum to turn this up the sideline for 15 yards, where the post safety has to make a shoestring tackle to keep this from even being a bigger gain. Let's draw this up from the end zone view here, since this is basically an inside zone run, only they actually use the momentum of this pulling tight end to help widen the C gap between him and the tackle on the play side, also stapling Kyle Shanahan's offense on the other side, only they typically combo off him and try to capture the edge. So now you can work the combo of the 4-eye almost 5 technique here, the 3 tech on the backside, getting up to those backers who based on pre-snap alignment already heavily tilted to the strong side and now creates easy angles for those climbing linemen, while the center takes care of the reach block on the shade. Check out this lane here that they create for the back, the edge defender can't quite trip him up, and we're rolling, with the safety having to make a key tackle for this not to turn into a house call. From this past week, there's a really cool play action concept he ran, which plays off all the inside blocks, typically reserved to Puka Nacua, with the shift towards more multi-tight end sets and probably trying to keep the top receiver healthy. They've taken some of that off his plate, but still good enough to use the illusion of this as a weapon against the defense. 12 personnel in this case to get the Bucs to match with base, although one of those tight ends is actually split out wide at the bottom of the screen, while Puka first comes across into this hip slot alignment. They once again motion him into a bluff lead block, even if it's more of a token run fake the opposite way, and then they release Nacua through that C gap into a crossing route while running off the corner and occupying a deep safety in cover 3 with a skinny post on the outside, plus a backside dig and the back releasing out to the flat slate. Stafford off the fake, hits him on the run, Puka's able to turn this up the sideline and stiffen the defender for a little extra. Check out the bind, this puts standard rookie nickel Jacob Parrish in, as he theoretically may need to involve himself in the run fit if the ball is handed off, but then he's also shaded outside since he'd be responsible for anything out to the flats. The second level of the Bucs appears to be frozen and Nacua is wide open as he breaks across the field. That is almost unguardable, and I love the finish once again. And then there's a 3-play package that's made them almost impossible to defend once they get inside the opposing 5-yard line, all from 13 personnel. Don't tell me the goal line fade is dead, at least as long as you have a master in the release game like Devontae Adams. Shaking this corner, who initially has outside leverage, and makes his over-the-shoulder grab look totally easy. If you do play this however, then they'll come back and have him run this little slant of a split release, where he's gonna get square with the corner momentarily before breaking inside, while the quarterback aborts the play fake here. And again, zero chance for Rick Woolen. Yet if you do shade a safety over that way, or you just feel like there's a bubble to the strong side, they'll just give it to one of the premier goal line backs in Kyren Williams on his F lead for a touchdown. Which, that package together is almost indefensible. They basically turned 2/3 of their red zone trips into 6 points at 66%. Sean McVay has orchestrated the number 1 offense in overall success rate at 51.5%, where they are number 2 on both dropbacks and rush attempts, and actually number 1 in the schedule adjusted DVOA, considering they face defenses like the Texans, Eagles, and Seahawks. Plus, let's not forget the Jaguars were the number 1 unit in the league by some metrics, before they got absolutely dismantled by those guys across the pond. first stepping into this heavy tight end sets because of the weakness they spotted defending dropbacks out of those looks, and that's something they've done all season long, just being a step ahead of the competition. For the second topic, let's now switch over to the defensive side of the ball with the duo of Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter for the Texans. It only felt right to talk about these two guys as part of a Texans defense that just dominated the Bills this past Thursday night, especially up front against an O-line that has become one of the best in the league over the last couple of years. When Houston drafted Will Anderson third overall 3 years ago and then signed Danielle Hunter as a free agent last offseason, this is exactly what they were trying to build. Right now, among defensive players with 100 plus pass rush snaps, they rank 2nd and 5th respectively in pressures with 121 combined. They are 3rd and 4th each in sacks with 21.5 combined. They're 2nd and 5th in pass rush win rate at over 27 and 22% respectively. And even though I'll focus on them getting after quarterbacks in this video, they're also 4th and 6th each when it comes to tackles for loss as physical edge setters in the run game. I want to sort of start with more of an individual play by both guys to showcase where they excel or create problems for opposing blockers, before we run through some clips where those skill sets complement and these two play off each other, understanding and supporting their teammates to terrorize quarterbacks. This is from week 1 against those Rams that we just talked about. 4th quarter, down by 5, LA in the 3rd and 4. From here would be a 50-yard field goal, so they need a big play to get the ball back. Will Anderson Jr. screams off that right side, converting speed to power for a huge sack on Stafford. He's ultimately going to force a punt here. Watch it from the end zone view as he's coming from this wide 9 alignment to that right side of us, going up against Rob Havenstein, who has to jump out of his stance, already a tall player with an even higher point of gravity now, as Will angles his rush through the tackle's chest and eats up the quarterback. Against the Titans a couple of weeks later, we'll look at this 3rd and 7 and how Danielle Hunter wins on this up and under move against the left tackle here as part of a twist involving this mucked up linebacker, where they're able to push back Cam Ward and force an errant throw, trying to hit this quick in-break and route that they're going to work out of a stack here, reading a little rub against man coverage. He's going to slice across and get up the quarterback's face to force this errant throw. I want you to pay attention to what Hunter does here footwork-wise. He's always been kind of a weird mover and pass rusher in the best sense possible, as he does some unorthodox stuff to keep blockers off balance. Usually you step with that foot that you have back, so the left foot in his case, because you load that opposite leg to explode out of his stance. Hunter instead pushes off, lets the inside foot go limp, and off just one step is able to plant, turn his shoulders almost perpendicular, and crash across the tackle's face, allowing the linebacker to come free as he loops around, and the quarterback can't hit the fadeaway throw. Now on the 3rd and 7 from the Seattle 7, in a game in which Houston's offense couldn't do anything all day until putting some lipstick on the pig late once the Seahawks took the foot off the gas pedal a little bit. Will Anderson delivers the biggest moment for his team on this Monday night affair with a strip sack into a fumble recovery for a touchdown trifecta. Texans are in an overload front to the left side, leaving Will all alone to his side. As Seattle slides half the line away from him, this left guard is unoccupied, but he's still have the running back being able to chip number 51. Yet as Sam Darnold holds onto the ball, that doesn't matter, as Anderson stays disciplined, with the quarterback trying to spin to his blind side, getting flushed, he's able to clean up the strip sack, and they actually jump on the loose ball for 6 points. What you have to understand here, even though you have this shade nose on a slant across the center's face, is that you have Hunter in this super wide alignment outside of the detached tight end, who will actually deliver a little chip, but then off that long track, he's going to have to try to condense the edge and force Darnold to slide the opposite way. Quarterback doesn't like what he's seeing, he's going to pull down the ball here, tries to spin around Will, but he's having none of that, forces the fumble, and the Texans D scores themselves on a day the offense was barely able to. First third down of the second half, up by 9 points against the wounded Niners team that does however have the 2 starting tackles, including a future first ballot Hall of Famer in Trent Williams on the left side. Yet Houston covers all 5 linemen, and these 2 guys on the edges are just like bats out of hell with the way they get off the ball, and those 2 crunch Mac Jones before he ever even has a chance. Check out how both these demons jump out of the stands, immediately threaten up the field, forcing their opponents to flip the hips early, winning the outside shoulder, Will just fights through the reach, while Danielle slides inside of his man, and they create a Mac Jones sandwich before he can settle at the top of his drop. And he's actually lucky this ends up only being ruled an incomplete pass. Initial play of the second quarter in the rematch with the Jaguars, down by 10 here, in a game they will trail until the final seconds, where these two monsters were the main characters in helping the Texans finish a humongous comeback. This is a basic second down, where the Jags try to set up a two-man play action concept of a weak side zone fake, but Will is having none of that, and forces Trevor Lawrence into the arms of his teammate for another strip sack. Watch Anderson off that right side, flat out run through the right tackle Anton Harrison plus the back, forcing Trevor to slide the opposite way, where the tight end assigned with Ceiling Hunter just gets abused, and this play action fake is deemed completely renderless, and even though the Jags jump back on top of the ball, this forces a punt. Second Titans game now, early in the fourth quarter. Will Anderson just power through the left tackle for a strip sack plus the recovery that set up the Texans taking the lead on the previous possession. So these guys aren't messing around anymore, understanding what they're dealing with, as they chip both edges, not wanting them to ruin this 3rd and 5, yet because Houston understands that, they're gonna run a T twist at the top, even though it's slightly more delayed than they probably want it to be, while Will stays home on more of a control rush the opposite way, and they're able to combine for the sack here. So this is a similar look to early in the Seattle game, where the Texans overload the side away from Will. Shade crosses the center's face, and potentially this is just a great adjustment by Danielle, but based on how aggressive that free technique, or he's almost in the 5 here straight up on the tackle, shoots up the field, I'm pretty sure they're trying to open up that A-gap for number 55. He kinda dips under and bends around the center trying to slide his way, and you can tell how intentional this is by Anderson to not allow Cam Ward to escape as he's getting flushed from the backside, and ultimately Hunter is able to hunt him down. Which brings us to this past Thursday night game against the Bills, where they surprisingly up 2016 coming out of halftime, but now Josh Allen and company have a chance to take back control as they get the ball back close to midfield in the 3rd and 6, where this time it's Hunter on the single side to the defense's right, only here Houston also puts the backer up over the guard, who will end up in man coverage against the back as they motion back inside. And now they run a different type of game, as Danielle this time crashes inside and the shade is supposed to loop all the way around to the opposite edge. Anderson meanwhile is able to run the hoop off the left side, and he nearly gets the sack, but Josh is able to break free here, scramble all the way out to his left, but gets forced back inside, and Will's the one to ultimately run him down anyway for the big play. I just want you to first enjoy Will's ability to bend the edge thanks to great ankle mobility coming off this right side. But then the effort to never give up, even as he misses the sack initially here. The QB is able to give a little okey doke to get around the shade here, but then Danielle is actually the one to take away the sideline here, so Josh reverses field again and then gets dragged down by number 51. Just incredible hustle all the way around. Very next drop back, also on the 3rd and 6 after 3 and out, defense needs to step up again, and they're in more of a 5-0 look here with more of an obvious dropper at the linebacker spot over the guard. The Bills have to ask the tight end to kickstart here first, as if he was in true pass protection before releasing late, taking away one eligible in the pattern however, while this time the Texans are running a twist inside here. Josh is able to escape pressure up his face initially, but Hunter off the spin move is able to run him down. Let's go to the end zone angle one more time here to see what really happened. So this is a TT game where this 2 technique head up over the left guard is going to draw the double based on alignment, but they're actually trying to free him up after occupying those 2 blockers, as the free technique crashes inside and spikes into the center, bowling him over and actually creating a direct path to the quarterback for himself, while his right guard is going to have to peel off for the nose. Meanwhile, off the right edge, there's Danielle in an angled wide alignment, as if he's going to run through the tackle's chest once again. Instead, what you're gonna see here is him jabbing inside, but then acts as if he's trying to go around the corner here, only to smoothly transition directly into a spin move, tossing the blocker to the turf. Allen is able to avoid trash at his legs, but Hunter lives up to his name and hunts him down. these two guys right now are just on another level as a tandem. The ways they can win individually when provided one-on-ones or having to battle through chips, but then also how they play off each other, understanding the teammates' tendencies and how it'll affect quarterbacks. They're just terrorizing opponents right now, which paired with a physical secondary where they can lock up opposing receivers, plus the range and ball skills from a guy like Caleb Bullock, who had a pick 6 in his past game. This entire unit is a nightmare to deal with. Flipping back over to offense, with the premier wide receiver in football right now, in Jaxon Smith-Njigba, his impeccable route running and ball skills, who as a draft prospect in 2023 was highly regarded, but maybe not seen as a true, no doubt about it, number one receiver at the next level. Since we had no 40 time on him, he almost exclusively operated out of the slot, with some other big time names around him in that Ohio State receiving corps. Even if he went for like 350 yards and 3 touchdowns in the Rose Bowl the year prior as the main attraction. Well, he had a solid rookie season and continued to progress throughout year 2, once again primarily lining up inside next to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. When the Seahawks decided to move on from both those veterans and make a philosophical shift with Clint Kubiak coming in as a new play caller, I wasn't sure either how exactly they deploy the top receiver. Well, he's done everything, quite literally, lining up at every single receiver position in the backfield, a variety of pre-snap motions, winning one-on-one on the outside, as a zone beater from the number 3 spot in trips, working all 3 levels of the field, but especially as an elite deep threat, having already hauled in 8 passes of 40 plus yards, twice as high a mark as any other player in the league. Let's go through 10 routes of his to showcase how he's become an elite threat from any alignment. This first one from the opener, he's actually back in the slot against the 49ers, who are in about as clear a quarters look, with a 4-3 front involving a nickel here as it gets. The Seahawks fake a duo run to the left, run off coverage on the outside with the skinny post, and now it's JSN bluffing as if he's stock blocking on the nickel initially here, before breaking out and up into that vacated space. Does really well to sell this here initially, and then beautifully adjusts to this pass placed to the back shoulder, and they end up with a nice chunk. Following week against the Steelers, he's lined up at the bottom of the screen as a single receiver in a condensed split. Seahawks send 21 personnel, they fake YF counter to that side, which gets a single high safety to step down and leaves the wide receiver one-on-one with a former All-Pro corner Jalen Ramsey on the skinny post, who's a veteran that'll tug his jersey off at the opponent, but JSN remains focused as he tracks this ball the whole way and finishes the body catch for a good 40 yards. Now against the Cardinals, Seahawks come out in a slightly condensed empty set where they motion the back inside. Not quite sure if this is a rotation into cover 3 once more, but that would be my best guess, as they run the slot on an in-breaking route, and JSN at the top makes it look as if he's coming right behind him, but he actually just throttles down for a second here before taking off up the sideline. Against this corner, who is now in recovery mode, just effortlessly looks this deep pass right into the breadbasket for an easy catch. Another player showcased in my video on the top 5 quarterback performances of week 5, when we got to witness a shootout between Donald and Baker Mayfield. Super aggressive play call here on the 2nd and 1, where Seattle is in 12 personnel once more, and at the snap bring this tight end from the 3x1 side across for another shot of play action, as they switch release JSN and Cooper Kupp, where really they're targeting a legit all-pro safety in his prime in Antoine Winfield Jr. one-on-one right up the seam, who has some good ball skills himself. But you'll see here the receiver being able to force him to flip around. Ball kinda hangs up there and is a little short, but check out this crafty adjustment to the bucket catch. Both hands wrapped around the ball so the defender can't rip it out anymore, and it results in a huge play. I could show you a 61-yard touchdown here from Jaxon running right past the safety in quarters from this game in Jacksonville, but instead you're getting a 2-for-1 of this guy just abusing those corners on deep outs. Both at the bottom of the screen, first for 18 and then 20 yards, where he truly spins those DBs around by 360 degrees, who are at his mercy, playing with an extensive cushion to not get beat deep here, and just looking helpless out there. As you'll also see on the second one, nodding to the post for a couple of steps, before whipping his hips around and check out number 2, just looking lost out there. A little help doesn't hurt, however, as here against the Texans' man-heavy scheme, the Hawks put JSN as the number 3 in this bunch, and they run the sail concept, with Torrey Horton taking off up the sideline, Cooper Kupp on a short out, and then our main man as the mid-level threat here. He's also working against what will be a perennial all-pro corner in Derek Stingley Jr., who for the first couple of steps he's gonna sell as if he's running some kind of bender or crossing route against, taking advantage of the space that he has here to work. Then stair steps him as he's about to get even, and makes this look easy as he bends out to the sideline for an uncontested grab, even if the ball is a tad late. In Washington now, another demolition in a night game, where this time he starts out as the number 3 in trips, but ends up moving into the backfield. Number 31 Jonathan Jones trails him and plays with heavy outside leverage. Not optimal as they try to hit him on this sort of flat to wheel route, but JSN does enough here to give himself space to the sideline, as he breaks out here initially to have room to turn this up, and then it's another picturesque over-the-shoulder grab at the sideline. Rematch with the Cardinals, 12 personnel, it's a two-man concept of a half roll, faking zone action to the right, and activists are running this classic cross and corner combination off a bootleg, only this time JSN will use the corner having that heavy outside leverage against him, as he initially widens him, and as the safety has to bail out late here before coming back down having to catch his crosser, it's the opposite man here having to fly out this way, but just no chance. Creates all that space for himself as he turns this up here, stacks the corner, is in control of the route the whole way, and doesn't lose focus as he hauls in this 43-yard score. This one's just showing off against the Rams, initially in 2x2, theoretically it's 12, so 2 tight ends on the field, as they motion one of them across into this sort of loose bunch at the top now, leaving JSN alone as the X on the backside. As soon as this boundary safety steps down, Donald immediately throws this up to his guy, who despite the corner playing heavy outside shade, is sudden enough to dust him at the line, with a little slow play and then takeoff, swipes down the corner's reach here, looks back, and he only needs one hand to finish this. Just a sick, nonchalant grab for an explosive gain. And finally, from this past Sunday at Tennessee, I won't show the 63-yard touchdown he had on a high 7 route earlier, but instead this 53-yarder where he's running a flat post or deep crosser against a single high look, back in 12 personnel, where they first motioned this tight end out of a tight bunch into an ace wing set to the left. It's another boot stop, off-zone action to the strong side for Donald here, with Kupp on the short out route, really making this a one-man concept as the tight end is matched on the shallow cross route. While JSN here initially gives this overhang a little wiggle to be able to avoid him, slightly shows his eyes as he opens out as if he's running some kind of corner route once more, tilting that way before crossing the safety's face, who he's nearly able to shrug off on the tackle here and finish for a touchdown, only to score a second one just soon after anyway. This guy's just become a master at the position. I absolutely love to watch him every week, and seeing the insane scores he also delivers for my fantasy team is part of the most explosive aerial attack in the league, largely driven by what this guy can do to get open and then also finish these plays for his quarterback. Right now, JSN is averaging 4.42 yards per route run, a full yard ahead of the previously mentioned Puka Nacua for number 1 in the league, and 0.6 yards ahead of what Tyreek Hill did 2 years ago, which today is the highest mark ever set by a wide receiver in the PFF era. He's just been unbelievable. Let's go back to the defensive side of the ball once more and look at what the play call is doing to enhance the strengths of one of the most talented units in the league, as I want to look at Vance Joseph manipulating protections and tying it together with the back end in Denver. The Broncos D was already up there for top 3 in the league in pretty much any category last season, yet even though they are currently missing reigning defensive player of the year Patrick Surtain in corner and have only received limited help from the offense for large portions of 2025, they may be even more dangerous this time around, especially looking at how they've performed in these big matchups against elite quarterbacks, because their pass rush feels more potent, and they've continued to get better, as some of the new additions like Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, or first-round pick Jody Barron have either gotten healthy or just worked their way into the defensive lineup to where they've become real impact performers. Right now, they are number 1 in opposing success rate allowed at just 38%, they're 4th in EP per play, 5th in schedule adjusted DVOA, but also number 1 in both third down conversion and red zone scoring percentage allowed, as well as having 7 more sacks than any other team in the league at 49. That's the area I wanted to focus here in this segment of the video, as Vance Joseph is a master at manipulating protections, creating favorable looks for his rush, while marrying it beautifully to what they're doing coverage-wise, as everyone feels in sync with what the play clock looks like in terms of how long they need to hold up on the back end, and what routes to play for depending on down and distance, as they're also top 3 in both pressure rates and pass rush productivity overall. This first play against the Colts comes in the high red zone on a 2nd and 11. Indy comes out in 12 personnel, with the back flipping over to flank Danielle Jones' right. Rookie tight end Tyler Warren also motions across, basically making him the condensed boundary receiver, while running a 5-out concept, with him on a little spot route, back fast to the flats, the actual Y runs a corner route, and then on the twin side, they're running this wrap element with a hitch from the slot, and then a dig coming in behind it. I'll drop the rush from the end zone view here in a second, but know that they'll get this backer here unblocked through the B gap, while basically playing cover 0 behind it, only they actually apply match principles at the top, with 3 over 3, the outside linebacker drops off and takes the first man out to the flats. The corner carries the vertical push up to a certain depth of about 8 yards, but then passes this off and closes back down here, and the safety obviously playing over the top. I'm not going to act like I know exactly how Shane Steichen on the other side teaches his quarterbacks to read these progressions, and maybe there's a chance to hit this dig route all the way to the wide side of the field. But with how quickly the pressure comes in, I guess Jones has to start flat to the corner or spot route, depending on what this corner does. It's not clear straight away, and they're going to get a quick pressure here and get the quarterback to the ground. Now let's focus on the front end of this, where the Broncos are on a 5-0 look, meaning they have every one of these linemen covered up theoretically. Once again, bring the motion across. The nose is shaded towards the offense's right side. Both these 3-4 defensive ends by nomination are in what I would call a 4-eye, so the inside shade of the tackle, allowing these outside linebackers to have clear one-on-ones against the tackles. But again, they're bringing 6. As Jonathan Cooper peels off the edge and is sort of replaced by the linebacker behind it, number 99 Zach Allen slants across the guard's face, opening up the direct path for the splitsing backer, Justin Sternard up the P-gap, while the shade, after taking up the field, he's actually going to loop that way as well. The Colts just have no way of blocking this. The left tackle is going to get called for holding here as he hooks Nick Bonito bending the edge, and it becomes a 3rd and extra long, where now they just hand the ball off and play for the field goal. Next one against the Eagles on a 3rd and 13 in the 4th quarter, as they're putting together a big time comeback, spearheaded by the defense's effort, and even though they really crowd the line of scrimmage here, it's the illusion of bringing pressure that has been more prevalent for what Vance has been doing this season, as them is actually just outside the top 10 in blitz rate this year, down from 2nd I believe last season. Here they actually only bring 4, including this nickel, who has no tail whatsoever, actually slightly shaded outside of this number 2 receiver, as Cooper slants inside, and it's Hufanga screaming off the opposite edge, meaning they drop all 4 defenders in the A and B gaps here. Jalen Hurts knows that he's gonna get cover 3 here, with a pretty clear indication pre-snap, looking at the corners playing off, plus the single high free safety. But all this commotion over the middle here spooks him, and there's just not much going on from a creativity sense by the Eagles either here, with the 2 wideouts on fade routes, with the option to stop them off, number 2 working up the seam, and then the side end settling underneath here. The running back's gonna get enough of a piece of the blitzing safety, so Jalen tries to step up and escape to his left, but Jaquan McMillan is able to hunt him down off the opposite end. Just check out all these bodies flying out here as the ball is snapped, and what it does to the quarterback. Already looking uneasy into his drop, getting out of a throw-ready posture before he even reaches the top of it, as McMillan hunts him down and nearly knocks the ball loose too. This 3rd one is part of a 9-sack showcase in London against the lowly Jets, but in a game they only won 11-9, as their offense couldn't get much going whatsoever themselves. This is just past the 2-minute warning in the 4th quarter, New York on the fringes of field goal range with a 1st and 10, so Denver needs a big play to push them back here, which Vance of course in the biggest moments is still gonna be the aggressor, as he calls up cover 0 here, with these 6 men inside, plus the nickel sort of shuffling inside pre-snap. With the back locked in protection, he becomes more of a spy or add-on rusher, tracking Justin Fields' movement. The Jets actually also keep the tight end in protection to potentially be able to pick this up, but that only leaves them with 3 eligibles left in the pattern. The X on a glance, plus the 2 receivers at the bottom, on a quick outs and corner combination, where they're trying to create some confusion maybe with the initial threat of the switch release here. Everyone's in pretty tight coverage. Maybe the deep route has a chance, but unfortunately this is a quarterback who needs to see his receivers open before letting the ball go, and they're able to eat him up. Both interior rushers immediately win on swim moves. They bring those two backers coming in behind them against the left tackle and right guard here. Bonito's gonna jump inside of the tight end, asked to protect him on the backside, who Hufanga theoretically is still manned up against, and there's just no way for Fields to escape this group sack, which they'd ultimately record another one in a gotta have it 4th down situation to close out the win. How about this one against the Raiders? Another low scoring affair, 10-7 for the Broncos on the Thursday night, down 7-0 at this point, and Vegas bypasses the opportunity for a long field goal attempt as they go for it on a 4th and 5. Broncos are in another double A-gap mug look. They're gonna drop 2 of these guys off and bring Hufanga off the weak side edge, as the Raiders probably anticipate some kind of man coverage, but they actually in cover 3 with a mag call on the backside, meaning these two are the only ones locked in with their matchup. Check out what McMillan does here in the slot, as Vegas puts the outside receiver in motion to try to change up the numbers or rules that you might have, as he gives a cross call as if they're about to pass off assignments in man, but actually this creates no problem at all, as that guy first has to clear these middle of the field defenders, and once again they have no problem picking up a quick outs and corner combination. Plus Riley Moss is stride for stride with this mid-round rookie at the top of the screen, as Hufanga goes unblocked for the sack off the blind side. Because the Broncos have both these D ends outside the tackles here, and Cooper number 0 as the one most likely to rush, the Raiders want to have 4 before to that left side, with the back stepping up inside first, but as Zach Allen and the other end directly attack those tackles, that leaves Hufanga coming free. They have this pick action by the 2 backers inside as well, and as Geno pulls down the ball here, this is over. Finally, let's go back to the last time we saw these guys in week 11 against the Chiefs. 4th quarter, just inside the final 4 minutes, and we're back in this double mug look on a 3rd and 10, tight game. Casey motions into a trip set to the left, and because this pass rush has given them fits for the better part of the day, they're gonna ask the top receiver Rashee Rice to actually chip the edge here before releasing late on the crosser. Plus they have a Freeman concept at the top, post outside. Travis Kelce makes it look as if he's running that sail route that we've seen so many times behind it, only to curl up around the 1st down marker. And number 3 on like a bender or deep crosser. Denver's gonna peel off this linebacker in the A-gap towards the short side of the field, and he's gonna be key in mudding up this look over the middle of the field into that free space that Mahomes sees pre-snap before passing us off to the deep safety in cover 3 with another neck call I guess on the backside. Meanwhile McMillan actually shuffles inside this time while they loop this edge inside, and we get another free rusher off the blind side of Mahomes for the sack. Just letting this one roll here, even this rushing backer actually, and a little step up and then stop as if he's dropping out, although he's actually the one coming. And then the nickel jumping on Mahomes' back for the huge stop, before they eventually kick the game winner on the other side themselves. So as you can probably imagine, these Broncos defenders are a thorn in the side of any quarterback. Nick Bonito's credible get-off to force quarterbacks to quickly step up or not even be allowed to hit the back foot of that drop. Jonathan Cooper's discipline to stay on bootlegs and generally not allow quarterbacks to escape from that, the way these bigger bodies on the interior are able to push the pocket vertically, and then he spats out a hill like Hufanga as an off-ball blitzer, all are being so well taught behind that to not allow concepts to develop properly, pass things off, and cover for the 2.5 to 3 seconds it takes for the rush to get home. That's why they're still on track to break the single season sack record by a team. The only thing the Broncos have surprisingly been below average in have been takeaways, and with the pressure they consistently apply, they're bound to jump up several spots in the department still, not coming off the bye week. Which brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and happy Thanksgiving to all my friends celebrating. Even living outside the US, I make a turkey and some sides every year, invite friends over to watch the games, the gift of football at a normal time for me during the week. So I hope you all have a great time yourselves, and I'm thankful for everyone supporting my work. If you do want to show the same, please hit the thumbs up button, click the bell if you want to see more videos like this, and maybe comment with the one player or whatever else you're thankful for on your favorite team or generally around the NFL. In case you want to get angry again, you can instead click the link in my bio to read through the article I released last week, ranking all 32 starting quarterbacks, which of course everyone always agrees with. Plus, you can let me know about your thoughts on that topic, or just stay up to date with all my thoughts around the sport and what I'm posting via my social media channels. Either way, I'll be back next week, probably in written form, depending on what happens as part of this slate of games, or at hellosofootballtalk.com. Hoping to hear from you guys soon. Happy Thanksgiving once again. So, until then, see you later. Peace!